Good morning, everybody. I guess you can hear me okay? All right. Okay, welcome to Paynes Creek Historic State Park, and this is part of our reenactment. We are going to do it twice today. Yesterday we did 11 and 2 o'clock, and we'll do that again today. What we're going to reenact is the events that took place at our trading post. We had the Kennedy Darling trading post on site, and it was attacked by Seminoles. And so we have reenactors that will act out the event that took place, and I'm not going to tell you any more of the story. I'm going to let you see it in live action. On August 14, 1842, Colonel William Jenkins Worth declared an end to the Second Seminole War. For 7 long years, the Seminoles had fought for the right to live in their homeland, but by the end of the war, only a few hundred of these brave, tenacious people remained in the state of Florida. Thousands of their brethren had been forcibly evicted to reservations in what is now known as Oklahoma. Those few who remained, however, were determined never to leave their place of birth. It was an easy truce because Seminoles had fought so hard for so long. They had become one of the most feared tribes in the nation. Leaders such as Osceola had become legendary, and the ferocity of the Seminole warriors had taken on mythical proportions. For those who were attempting to promote the settlement of Florida, the presence of these celebrated warriors proved a significant problem. Settlers would not make their homes in a land where they did not feel safe. Yet conflict with their neighbors was the last thing the Seminoles wanted. The long years of warfare had forced them from their comfortable homes in the north of the peninsula into the inhospitable places such as the Everglades. While many whites believed Seminoles would starve to death living in the Everglades and conditions that were swamps, but the highly adaptable Seminoles had made wetlands of the South Florida their home and were learning to thrive where no one else could do so. For these people, the best way to avoid being driven from their land they loved was to avoid the white settlers as much as possible. Total avoidance of white neighbors would prove impossible. In rich grasslands near the Peace River and north of Lake Okeechobee, Seminoles grazed their cattle. In those same prairies, white cattlemen fed their own herds, and friction was inevitable. Land speculators with visions of large communities and large profits wanted to sell off the southern portion of the state of Florida to the land-hungry settlers. Plantation owners wanted to expand their holdings and spread the institution of slavery deeper into the state of Florida. For all these people, Seminoles appeared to be an obstacle that needed to be removed. As much as the Seminoles hoped to avoid their white neighbors, they also needed them. The Stone Age Native American culture that had first greeted European settlers had vanished, replaced by the one that was dependent upon factory goods. Rifle, steel knives replaced the bow and arrow. Metal cookpots had replaced ceramic pottery. Clothing was made from factory woven cloth. For the Seminole Indians, trade with the whites was inescapable. Understanding the reality, the government had authorized a firm of Kennedy and Darling to erect a trading post on the shores of Charlotte Harbor. A hurricane of 1848 destroyed the trading post, and it was decided to build anew one farther inland, closer to the Seminole villages. A small creek that emptied into the Peace River was chosen as the site, and Captain George Payne was put in charge of the store. Captain Payne hired a 21-year-old Dempsey Whitten to assist him, along with Whitten's brother-in-law, William McCullough, and William McCullough's wife, Nancy. With the couple was their 7-month-old daughter, Elizabeth Francis. On the afternoon of July 17, 1849, the Seminole leader known as Chipko came to the post, accompanied with several Seminole women. After Chipko and the several Seminole women that accompanied him conducted their business, they remained at the store for some time in discussion with Captain Payne and Whitten. In the meantime, William and Nancy McCullough went about working and preparing the evening's meal. Sometime after the departure of Chipko and the women, several warriors arrived at the store claiming to have a large number of skins to trade. They attempt to tell Captain Payne and Whitten that the skins are on the east side of the river. and asked to use Captain Payne's boat to bring them across. Payne's response is that he will assist them after supper. They're also asked if they can spend the night in the store, but Payne refuses this request. As the merchants enter the cabin, as the discussion concludes, the merchants enter the cabin to have their evening meal. The warriors appear to be relaxing. What the storekeepers are not aware of is that the same group of Seminole Indians had attacked a store in Fort Pierce and killed the proprietor. Concealed from the view of the merchants, the warriors load their rifles Seminoles burst into the cabin, immediately killing Captain Payne and Nancy Whitten. William McCullough and his wife Nancy grabbed their baby and flee out the back of the cabin. Both are wounded but managed to escape. The McCulloughs eventually traveled to safety. The McCulloughs were both wounded, and with their infant in their arms, hide out in the woods to avoid capture by the Seminoles. After 3 days' journey, they arrived at the safety of a relative's home, some 25 miles away from the scene of the attack. News of the murder spread quickly through the thinly settled frontier. Fearing the general Indian uprising, settlers throughout Florida flee their homes and gathered at Army outposts for protection. The government sends hundreds of troops, and a string of forts were immediately erected across the peninsula. One of those fortifications is erected a half-mile from the scene of the attack trading post where the killings took place, called Fort Chokonikla, a Seminole word for burnt store. Events seem to create war. Yet the Seminoles do not want war. The murderous outlaws, and even the Seminoles carried out their Yet the Seminoles do not want war. The murderers were outlaws, and even the Seminoles captured the warriors and turned them over to the authorities. But peace does not last. Pressure continues for the Seminoles to migrate to Oklahoma. They adamantly refused, and in December of 1855, war breaks out again. For 2.5 years, the Army invades the Seminole homeland, searching for hidden villages and destroying all that they can find. In March of 1858, Billy Bowlegs at last agrees to immigrate, and with him go over 100 of his followers. Yet there are a handful of Seminoles that never surrendered, and they will remain hidden deep in the Everglades and become the ancestor of the Seminoles who live in Florida today. In March of 1858, Billy Bowlegs at last agrees to immigrate and with him go over 100 of his followers. Still, there was a handful of Seminoles that never surrendered, and they will remain hidden deep in the Everglades and become the ancestors of the Seminoles who live in Florida today. All right, I want to thank the reenactors for coming out and portraying the event. Thank you. We have great staff at Paynes Creek. The Paynes Creek Preservation Alliance, which is here And that's our CSO, the Citizen Support Organization. So thank you for coming out and taking part. Thanks again.